Hi. What is your pain?
Xeroderma pigmentosum.
Just because you are strong enough to handle pain doesn't mean you deserve it. Raise up, it's time for you to heal. On the channel biography there is an email address you can write and share the world your pain anonymously. What is xeroderma pigmentosum? Xeroderma pigmentosum, XP, is a genetic disorder in which there is a decreased ability to repair DNA damage such as that caused by ultraviolet, UV, light. Symptoms may include a severe sunburn after only a few minutes in the sun, freckling in sun-exposed areas, dry skin and changes in skin pigmentation. Nervous system problems, such as hearing loss, poor coordination, loss of intellectual function and seizures, may also occur. Complications include a high risk of skin cancer, with about half having skin cancer by age 10 without preventative efforts, and cataracts. There may be a higher risk of other cancers such as brain cancers. There is no cure for XP. Treatment involves completely avoiding the sun. This includes protective clothing, sunscreen and dark sunglasses when out in the sun. Retinoid creams may help decrease the risk of skin cancer. Vitamin D supplementation is generally required. If skin cancer occurs, it is treated in the usual way. The life expectancy of those with the condition is about 30 years less than normal. XP is autosomal recessive, with mutations in at least 9 specific genes able to result in the condition. Normally, the damage to DNA which occurs in skin cells from exposure to UV light is repaired by nucleotide excision repair. In people with xeroderma pigmentosum, this damage is not repaired. As more abnormalities form in DNA, cells malfunction and eventually become cancerous or die. Diagnosis is typically suspected based on symptoms and confirmed by genetic testing. The disease affects about 1 in 100,000 worldwide. By region, it affects about 1 in 370 inches India, 1 in 20,000 inches Japan, 1 in 250,000 people in the United States and 1 in 430,000 inches Europe. It occurs equally commonly in males and females. Xeroderma pigmentosum was first described in the 1870s by Moritz Kaposi. In 1882, Kaposi coined the term xeroderma pigmentosum for the condition, referring to its characteristic dry, pigmented skin. Individuals with the disease have been referred to as children of the night or moon children. Genetics. One of the most frequent defects in xeroderma pigmentosum is an autosomal recessive genetic defect in which nucleotide excision repair (NER) enzymes are mutated, leading to a reduction in or elimination of NER. If left unchecked, damage caused by ultraviolet light can cause mutations in individual cells' DNA. The causes of the neurological abnormalities are poorly understood and are not connected with exposure to ultraviolet light. The most current theories suggest that oxidative DNA damage is generated during normal metabolism in the central nervous system, and that some types of this damage must be repaired by NER. The molecular defects in XP cells result in a greatly elevated induction of mutations in sun-exposed skin of affected individuals. This increased mutation frequency probably accounts for the pigmentation changes in the skin cancers. Examination of mutations in the page 53 gene in tumors from XP patients reveal page 53 mutations characteristic of UV exposure in the majority of tumors. As with all genetic disorders, genetic counseling and psychological support is appropriate for the families to discuss probability of occurrence in future pregnancies, feelings of isolation and concern about career prospects. There is no cure for xeroderma pigmentosa. The most common fate for individuals with XP is early death from cancer. You can't go through life allowing pain to dictate how you behave. I met someone who wants to share the world her pain. Hear from her.
Hi, my name is Christy. This is my story for my daughter, Adeline. Della was diagnosed with XP at 11 months old. The journey to her diagnosis felt like years, not months. Adeline's first sunburn occurred at 7 days old when she was outside for under 10 minutes on a cloudy day without being exposed directly to sunlight. Neither myself, my mom who is an RN, or our pediatrician could figure out what exactly was going on with Adeline's skin. Was it a rash or an allergic reaction? We thought that perhaps it was contact dermatitis, or an allergic reaction to something I ate that was getting passed through my breast milk. Whatever it was, it went in cycles, and each week the symptoms would come back and they appeared to be getting worse and spreading across her face to her neck and ears and her hands. We didn't understand it was a sunburn until Memorial Day weekend 2019, when her face swelled to the point that she couldn't open her eyes and she ran a fever of 102. Because of this, we rushed to Seattle Children's Emergency Room and had a several-day hospital stay. An on-call dermatologist stopped by and identified what we thought was a rash as a severe sunburn. We were referred to the Seattle Children's Dermatology Clinic and got a follow-up appointment 3 weeks later, and were told to not expose her to direct sunlight and to call back if things got worse. Inevitably they did. When we came back, at both my and our pediatrician's request, I received a referral to a specialist at University of Washington who dealt with rare genetic disorders. We saw the specialist in late August, and she walked us through the various genetic conditions that could cause photosensitivity at such a young age. The discussion was horrible. The only good news was that most of the conditions involved some sort of physical deformity or cognitive delay, and Adeline didn't have either yet. We weren't out of the woods, but without genetic testing, we wouldn't have answers. It took months of advocating for testing despite the specialist's recommendation. The dermatologist recommended a wait-and-see approach. However, I and our pediatrician advocated and challenged that decision over and over again until the dermatologist agreed to submit the paperwork for genetic testing. When we received the results from the testing in April, I knew being an advocate on behalf of my daughter was the right choice. The wait-and-see method that the dermatologist recommended would have worked in the sense that we wouldn't see physical sunburns, but the permanent and lasting damage from repeated UV exposure would have caused skin cancer to appear, maybe not today, but in the near future. Now that we know, we can do everything possible to reduce UV exposure so that she will be much less at risk for developing skin cancer. Our life has been turned somewhat upside down. It is a complete lifestyle change to avoid UV exposure. From what I've heard from other families of XP children, it will only get easier as she grows and as we develop a rigorous system or a routine. Right now we're learning. We're trying to get her environment protected, inside our house, our car, so that it is UV safe. We're implementing routines that we have to follow every time we go to open a door, a window, or try to leave the house with her so she can be safe. We used to spend every weekend outdoors, working in our yard, going for hikes and walks. Right now we have to divide and conquer. One of us doing outdoor activity with our 4-year-old, and the other stays with Della inside the house. We do go on family walks if it's cool in the evenings with her in the UV-protected stroller. On a cloudy day here in Washington, the UV meter can read between 300–600. On a sunny day the meter stops functioning once the level gets above 2000. Why is this important? Because in order for it to be safe for my daughter, the meter needs to read 10 or less. This means that in order for her to go outside even on a cloudy, rainy day, she needs to be fully protected from head to toe, with zero skin exposed. This means a full application of sunblock, a UV sun protectant hat with a UV light blocking face shield, gloves on her hands in addition to clothing that protects her skin and brings the UV reading down to 5 or less. Since she is so young and isn't walking yet, the hats with shield get in the way of her crawling, so we have both a specially made car seat cover and stroller cover with UV blocking plastic. Right now our greatest source of strength is our faith. That combined with the support from other XP and Cockayne syndrome families that are helping. They provide me with hope and insights on what we should know and need to be watching or doing. What I think people should know about sun protection. Everyone assumes that because we're in Washington that it's safer for Della and that individuals don't need to worry about sun protection. But it's not the case. I'm a fair-skinned translucent redhead who has burned easily my entire life. I don't tan, but I do freckle, and the freckles I've received are due to the skin damage I've experienced from UV exposure. Even though I carry the recessive genes that my daughter inherited, I need to be cautious and protect myself. I come from a long line of individuals on my father's side who have had skin cancer, including my 41-year-old sister who was diagnosed this last year. My sister's diagnosis was a wake-up call that I need to get checked regularly because of the issues that run in my family. Della's diagnosis was a wake-up call to understand just how much UV exposure we experience, even inside a house on a cloudy day. The UV meter made me realize how little protection we receive from light-colored and cotton shirts, which I assumed were enough. Today, face masks are a little more commonplace, but for our children, it's a way of life. My son had to wear a helmet for brachycephaly and plagiocephaly for 8 months, and people would stare and make weird and awkward comments. It's so tough as the mom, listening and wondering how the comments will impact your children. I want people to know, it's okay to ask questions. Please ask, but be cognizant that the words you use do have an impact. Teach your children that it's okay to ask questions, and teach them how to politely ask questions instead of staring or making awkward comments from a distance. Della will be resilient and she'll know how to respond and answer questions, but it doesn't mean that she won't have feelings. The word that give me strength. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. English Standard Version. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Jeremiah 29. Goodbye.
Signs and symptoms. Signs and symptoms of xeroderma pigmentosa may include 1. Severe sunburn when exposed to only small amounts of sunlight. These often occur during a child's first exposure to sunlight. 2. Development of many freckles at an early age. 3. Rough surfaced growths, solar keratosis, and skin cancers. 4. Eyes that are painfully sensitive to the sun and may easily become irritated, bloodshot and clouded. 5. Blistering or freckling on minimum sun exposure. 6. Telangiectasia, spider veins. 7. Limited growth of hair on chest and legs. 8. Scaly skin. 9. Xeroderma, dry skin. 10. Irregular dark spots on the skin. 11. Corneal ulcerations. Treatment of xeroderma pigmentosum. There is no cure for the disorder. All treatment is symptomatic or preventive. Symptoms can be avoided or controlled by completely avoiding exposure to sunlight, either by staying indoors or wearing protective clothing and using sunscreen when outdoors. Keratosis can also be treated by using cryotherapy or fluorouracil. In more severe cases of XP, even minuscule amounts of UV light, for example, from covered windows or fluorescent bulbs, can be very dangerous and trigger symptoms. On the 10th of September, 2020, Clinuvel Pharmaceuticals announced that it was investigating the use of its FDA-approved flagship drug Scenesse as a potential treatment to increase pain-free light exposure for patients with xeroderma pigmentosum. Research into XP has had two main results: better understanding the disease itself, and also better understanding the normal biological mechanisms involved in DNA repair. Research into XP has produced insights that have been translated into treatments and prevention for cancer. Men are not as simple as they show themselves to be. But we need to speak out sometimes. Hardly got an email from any men in this world. I did not create this channel only for myself. I created it for the world, and to save people from pain. So remember, people are here for you. On the channel biography there is an email address. You can write, record yourself, and let the world know you exist. No winter lasts forever, no spring skips its turn. Use the pain as fuel and keep going. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Catch you later.